This episode of the Arch Advocate Show is brought to you by the Word of God made flesh, the Son of God, God making himself man and walking amongst us, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Jesus Christ is the Arch Advocate. Listen, folks, don't get it twisted. Let there be no mistake in your mind. We are this period of history that we are living in right now, the present. This is nothing short of an age-old battle of good and evil being brought to your attention. Now, in America, in the Western world, we've lived for many decades now where we didn't really have to think about it, right? Especially in America, like all the bad stuff and all the bad people, they all lived somewhere else. They were in Germany in 1930s, they were in China, they were in Laos, they were in Cambodia. We didn't have to think about it. Former Soviet Union, we didn't really, we were comfortable. We were guarded by two gigantic oceans. We had all the best scientists in the world. We had all the weaponry. Like we've lived in a time for a long time where we were never really confronted face to face with evil. We sent people out to go confront it for us, but if we ourselves didn't see it, it was because we lived in the most prosperous, the most powerful nation in the history of the world. But that time is now over. It is over. And if you cannot see that the times that we are living in is like a, I don't know, I guess the word is a crescendo. You know what I mean? Like a final. It may not even be final, but it's certainly like, it's the boiling point where it's like, okay, this is good versus evil. This isn't, well, I have some ideas and you have some ideas and both of us disagree. It's not that anymore. And I know I lose a lot of atheists talking this way, but okay, well, what do you call it then? What do you call it? You don't think there's evil in the world? Well, then I would say that you've lived a very sheltered life, and you probably turned your eye away from things when evil was happening right in front of you. You probably turned your eye away from it, right? I told you guys that story. I used to have this neighbor who worked for Homeland Security in San Diego, and his job was to go into the cyberspace and hunt down people who prey upon children. This guy started telling me about what his day-to-day was like. After about 2 minutes of him talking, I had to ask him to stop talking. It was so graphic. He's just like, yeah, this is what I do every day. Here, let me tell you what I do every day. 2 minutes later, I'm like, whoa, dude, stop. I can't have this. I can't have the knowledge of this evil. It was too much, but that's what he does in our country every single day. And there's a whole department in Homeland Security. There's a whole department just dedicated to like what this guy does. Him and his friends, his co-workers, that's what they do. There is evil happening in the world to children. You see what I'm saying? Like if you're an atheist and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, I'm a postmodernist, like I don't believe that there's such a thing as evil. Okay, well, what do you call that then? And use your imagination. What do you think what I'm talking about when I say this guy goes after people who hunt down children and steal them? What do you think they do with those kids? I'm not going to go into it, and I hate to even cause you to imagine that, but that's evil. There is evil in the world, a lot of it. And now it turns out that it's all the way up into the highest places of the ruling class of the most powerful, the most wealthiest nation in the history of the world. The rot has gone all the way to the top of the tree and all the way down into the roots. This is good and evil. We're going to be talking about that a little bit today, right? How do you differentiate, good and evil versus like, well, I have my ideas and you have your ideas, right? Like take vaccinations, for example. Right? There's people that are very anti-vaccinations, and to a certain degree, I am. You know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, we had, I don't know, 7 or 8 vaccinations, polio, mumps, whatever, measles, smallpox, Spanish flu. I don't even know. I don't even know. Right? But I know it was like a couple of times, right? All of us, when we were kids, we'd go to our parents would take us to the doctor. We'd get the shot, and then they'd give us a lollipop or whatever because we were crying. How many times did you do that? And now that that you have kids nowadays, you take them to the doctor, like, oh no, we have to put 70 shots, and your kids is like, why? Are there 70 diseases? How many diseases are there? For crying out loud, why do you got to put so many chemicals into my kids, right? So that's one thing where it's like, if you talk to, I have a friend who's a chiropractor, but he's not just a chiropractor, all right? Because I know everybody's like, oh, chiropractor. He's like a famous chiropractor. He was allowed into Ground Zero after September 11th. He's worked on like leaders of nations. Like he's like a famous guy in the chiropractic world, and he's very into like holistic medicine and truly bringing about to fruition the body's ability to heal itself. Like he's all about that. He's really smart. I'm not a big fan of chiropractic, but if I need advice on nutrition or whatever, or like self-healing, he's the guy to talk to. Like he's really smart, and he's absolutely anti-vaccination, right? But on the other hand, it's like there is still polio in the world. We just don't really have it in America, but it exists. It's out there. People get polio, and guess what? If you get polio, that is a life sentence. If you get sick with that sickness, you're done. You're gonna have a crappy life for the rest of your life, right? So it's like, there's people that are like, yeah, I understand what you're saying about being anti-vaccination, but the fact is there's still polio, there's still measles, and we have the ability to make sure that your kids don't have that. So it's like, that's a conversation where it's not good and evil. You know what I mean? It's not a good and evil scenario. It's I think this way and you think that way. My friend Brian, he's hard to one side. He's strictly anti-vaccination. And there's people like me that's like, well, I'm not really for anti-vaccinations, but you better believe my kids are getting polio, measles, all those other vaccinations. I'm definitely getting those. Then there's people that are way on the other side who just have this blind belief in the medical sciences. They're like, why would a doctor lie to you about that? And they're just pumping their kids full of all kinds of different vaccinations. So you see what I'm saying? Like there's a debate to be had in there as long as everybody comes to the table and are reasonable. Because all three of those different types of people, me, Brian, and Mr. Lefty, I believe in everything that scientists say, right? As long as everybody comes to the table, like we can have a rational conversation, and we can probably even, turn points of views. You know what I mean? Like I might be a little bit more fluid in my absolutes. Dr. Brian might be a little bit more fluid in his absolutes. You never know. But one thing that's sure is that like as long as everybody's being reasonable, right? Then we can approach the truth. But that's not like a good and evil conversation. Now here's a good versus evil conversation. Is like we've got people right now in America, in the mainstream, in the public eye, that are advocating for pedophilia. This is happening. It's happening right now. You can see it for yourself. That's a good versus evil conversation. You want pedophilia? You're evil. I don't want to talk to you. There is nothing I want to hear from you. I don't want to hear your side of the argument. I don't want to hear about whatever data you may have collected. I don't want to hear about any of that. You're evil and I'm good. And I'm against you. You know what I mean? Like that's a good versus evil conversation. And it pains me to say this, but it's painfully obvious. It is stark. It is in our face. Man, I hate to say this, man, but like the Democrats have decided to go evil. And everybody who identifies nowadays as like a modern day liberal has sided with evil. They've lost their bearings altogether. It's these people that are the ones who are advocating for pedophilia, who are advocating to bring hyenas into our borders, right? I was watching Owen Benjamin. You guys listen. I told you I was going to be like compiling, like, you know, if you can't get to everything on social media as far as podcasts and YouTube shows go, you really need to watch Owen Benjamin's podcast that is up today on the vindication of Donald Trump. He actually doesn't actually get around to talking about Donald Trump, but he says that at this one point, he says, you know, I watched the movie The Lion King for the first time with my kids last night. So first of all, Owen, I call BS on that. There's no way you've gotten to be this age in your life and have never seen The Lion King. But I digress. He goes on to say, like, look, that movie is actually a good propaganda piece for conservatism, because it's this king and he oversees the land, and the only thing that this king is concerned about is keeping a separation between, you know, the people that are in his kingdom, or, you know, the animals in his kingdom, and keeping the hyenas out of his kingdom. Right? You ever seen The Lion King? That's the whole premise of the movie. Is Mufasa has his kingdom, and the hyena, like the head hyena, who I'm sure there's no coincidence whatsoever that the main hyena is played by none other than one Whoopi F. Goldberg, who ironically is neither, you know, Whoopi meaning fun sexy time, nor Goldberg meaning Jew. She's neither of those things. But I digress from that. The main hyena is Whoopi Goldberg, right? And what does Uncle Scar want to do? He wants to remove the king and bring the hyenas into the kingdom, right? Uncle Scar is the bad guy. Right now, the leftists are saying, no, Uncle Scar's the good guy. He's got nothing but love in his heart. He loves everybody so much that he wants to let the hyenas come into the good land. That's what leftists are saying these days. No, Uncle Scar needs to be king. Because we need these hyenas, man. These hyenas, dude, they are just victims of years and years and years of Mufasa's apartheid. It's you know, it's alpha lion privilege, man. Right? Scar has to be king. Screw Mufasa, man. He's a bigot. He's a racist. He's a hyenaphobe. Right? We need to get rid of those people, and we need to kill them, because that's the only language that they understand. Just like in China, right? Those good Chinese people, man. What did they do with the Christians and the people who, you know, decided that they wanted to be free? Man, they just shipped them off to gulags, those evil bastards. Got to ship those evil people out of here, man. They're holding up progress. We're trying to progress here, man. We need these hyenas to come into our land. Then they will understand what it's like to be peaceful. Uncle Scar has it all right. It's bizarre, isn't it? And Owen Benjamin, in this episode, that you like, if you know, if after you're done listening to this, if you want to, you know, have some direction on what else is, like, I strongly recommend you watch this piece, because it's nonstop. Like, Owen Benjamin goes off and he makes like just hard-hitting point after hard-hitting point. He talks about the upside down world. Like, if you've watched Stranger Things on Netflix, not a sponsor, you know, on Stranger Things, like the evil, you know, the evil that's being battled is called the upside down world. And that's what we're living in. That's what these people want. They want the upside down world where you know, light is darkness, darkness is light, and good is evil, and evil is good. And how do you know this? How is it that you can look at these Democrats and the liberals and these activists and Antifa, and how do you know? How can you decipher which one is, like, is this just a normal conversation that we need to be having, like vaccinations? Or is this a downright blood battle, a battle to the death between good and evil? How do you figure out which kind of conversation you're having? Right? vaccinations, homeschooling versus public schooling, trade school versus university. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, Baptist or, I don't know, Baptist versus, I don't want to say Calvinist because, listen, if you're a Calvinist, like I've got a lot of Calvinist friends, but trust me, you will never come to the end of my browbeating. Like Calvinism is like, if you want to see some stupid shit, go watch Sam Harris and just understand that everything that Sam Harris is saying, he plagiarized from John Calvin. And Sam Harris is stupid. Josh, come on the show, buddy. All right. Anyways, oh God, where was I? Okay, yeah, it's making the differentiation. Calvinism versus, Lutherans versus Baptist or whatever. It's like, those are conversations. Those aren't good versus the, or how about this? How about, non-denominational Protestant Christianity in Southern California versus, Roman, like if you lived in the city of Rome and were a devout Catholic. You know what I mean? Right? Like those are two very far ends of the spectrum. Well, that's not a good versus evil, like the devout Catholic who hates all Protestants and the devout Protestant who hates all Catholics. Those people can sit down and they will have a discussion, and never once will it enter their mind like, oh, you're evil. I think you're evil and I need to kill you because you're evil. You know what I mean? Like that's just a conversation that you can have, and you can spend the rest of your life on it and you'll never get to the end of it, but you know what I mean? So what formula do you use? Well, if I can steal from the words of Jesus, if you don't mind if I plagiarize a little bit, he says, you will know them by their fruits. What do they bear? Right? These people that are anti-vaccination or hardcore pro-vaccination, like there's, I'm sure there's some people that they're just virtue signaling and there is evil in their heart. But I think for the most part, people are coming from a very genuine place. Like I don't want my kids to be sick. I don't want my kids to be sick from putting all kinds of weird chemicals in their body. Okay, that's a very rational, understandable perspective to have. And then there's the other people that are way on the other side saying the same thing. I don't want my kids to be sick, and so I'm going to put these weird chemicals into their body. Okay, I can see it. I can definitely see it. I may not agree, because I told you, like I'm kind of in the middle on that one. So it's like I both agree and disagree. So I disagree with the both of them, and I agree with the both of them. But how do you find out if somebody, like what measures will you use? What compass? What, little, I'm just thinking of like a torque wrench, and you pull on that on that torque wrench and it tells you how much torque you've got on it. It's like what measuring device? Like if we can create a spiritual department of weights and measures, then what are going to be the measurements that we're going to use to decide if somebody is being evil? Right? Is that a tough one? Or is it pretty easy? If people are lying, if people are knowingly bearing false witness, manipulating the truth, bullshitting, lying, fibbing, telling tall tales, spinning a yarn, whatever, if they're knowingly doing that, that is evil. It's evil. It can come on many levels, right? My son here in some point in the next 4 to 5 years, he's going to steal cookies out of the cookie jar. And I'm going to ask him about it, and he's going to say, no, Dad, I didn't steal the cookies. That's going to be a lie. It's going to be a certain level of evil, right? But certainly one, in that condition, it can be corrected. You can sit down and say, now look, like there's, truth is very important, son. As a matter of fact, kind of like the whole purpose of your life is to seek the truth and live in it. But when it's 70-year-old senators of the most powerful nation on the planet, and that those lies come out, where it's like we're gonna take this lady who doesn't have a single shred of truth about what she's saying. Oh, I can't fly because I'm afraid of confined spaces and closed doors because of Brett Kavanaugh. So let me assure you, dear Senate, I cannot fly to Washington, D.C. from California because it triggers my PTSD, and then I'm just like, Da Nang Dick having his flashbacks from Vietnam. And then we find out, well, she hates flying, except for all the times that she was flying all around the world to Costa Rica and to all the, all these extravagant vacations that she went on. Though it was okay for her to fly then, just not this time. She has 4 witnesses to her sexual assault. Only thing is, 3 of them said, no, I have no idea what she was talking about. And the 4th one was her very good friend who said, I have no idea what she's talking about. I have no idea what she's referencing in her mind. I wasn't there. I don't know what she's talking about. And all the other lies, right? Oh, I had a polygraph test, but I don't remember which day it was. It was either the day that I buried my grandmother or it was the day I had to catch a flight. But I can't remember which one. You know what I mean? Like, it just goes on and on and on. Lies. Now, what's the difference between my kid lying about the cookie and her lie? Nothing, really. Except for the intent. Right? My kid intends to not be found out to be in trouble. Right? Their intent is to subvert our way of life. We may not have the perfect way of life in America, but it is certainly the most perfect in the history of the world. It's as perfect as it's ever been. And the President of the United States has the right to name a Supreme Court justice. He can name them, and then the Senate comes in and they ask questions or whatever, and they vote. That's how the system works. They wanted to subvert that. They wanted to get violent against people. They called for violence against people. We just saw that Sheila Jackson of Houston, I believe it is. She's a Texas Democrat. It was her staffer that released the phone numbers and addresses of these senators and congresspeople who are conservatives. That's an act of violence. I said yesterday or the day before, whenever it was, that we're probably never going to hear about who sent this, this Racine poison or Racine, whatever, to James Mattis and to Ted Cruz. And man, I was totally wrong. They snatched that guy up within hours. Turns out he was the guy that was in the Navy. I don't know. That's not significant, I don't think. But they caught him and they put him on the news. I was dead wrong about that. But that was an assault. That was attempted murder. Racine will kill you quickly. Attempted murder. They are willing to lie and murder and threaten violence. Doxing people. Doxing means putting your name and address out into the public so that other like-minded individuals can receive that information and take action. Sheila Jackson Lee had her staffer release that information out into the ether, and now there's a whole bunch of leftists who are violent who have that information. That is an act of violence. That's who these people are. All of the fruit that these people bear is lies and violence, and everything is upside down. Just look at the history of the behavior, right? Like, you remember 2 years, right around 2 years ago, like the hip new thing that all the kids were doing was running around calling everybody a racist. So you're a racist. If you're white, my friend Sam told me, because I asked him, I'm like, hold on, let me understand if what I'm hearing is correct. Are you saying that just by me being white, which I had no control over, right? I was born in this skin. Just by me being white is in of itself racist. You know what he said? Yes. It is racist because you have privileges more than other people and you don't understand it, man. And these people have been held down and blah, 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 blah. But ultimately his answer was yes. Okay, so you're the good people then. You're the people who aren't racist, right? You're the ones who are trying to eliminate racism out of the human condition. I see. And then what did we see from them? These are the people, right? The virtue signalers. We're the virtuous people. We're the liberals, man. We're the progressives. We're trying to progress. We're trying to push humanity forward, man. We're trying to progress. And what did we see out of them as it applied to racism? As soon as Candace Owens, right? A very pretty black woman that has a mind. She's got a very quick mind. Boy, I would hate to get into an argument. If I had something to argue about with her, like I would be afraid of losing. Like she's very quick, right? She does not miss a beat. Her timing is impeccable. But she's a dark-skinned black woman. And then you've got C.J. Pearson, a kid. He's literally like, unless he's had a birthday in the last couple of weeks, like I believe he's still 16 years old. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter or whatever. He's this young, 16 years old, so I guess he's a young man, but he's a young man, 16 years old, he's black, and he's a conservative, and he's just like, no, I'm not going to be bullied into thinking a certain way or not. I'm going to think for myself, and here's what I think. I think conservatism, makes sense for me. Colion Noir. He's that's not his real name, but he's got a channel over there at NRA TV. And then you've got Thomas Sowell, a brilliant economist and philosopher, black. And you got Kanye West, and look at how leftists, these champions of the poor and downtrodden black folks, look at how they treat these black people, including Kanye West. Now listen, I want to make this clear. I never listened to Kanye West's music because I found him to be so repugnant in his behavior that I was just like, I hear that you're a genius. That's what I'm told. I'm sure if I listen to your lyrics, I'm gonna find the genius in it, and then I'm gonna like it, and therefore I'm not gonna listen to it because I don't want to like you. And now that he has come out and he's taken a stand and he's like, look, I'm going to think for myself. I'm going to think what I want to think, and I love America. I'm totally on the Yee train now. Kanye. Right? But look how leftists are treating that guy. You go onto the Young Turks, you see that word ignorant. Now, by the way, ignorant is a word that I use quite a bit to describe a lot of different things, but it's kind of a well-known, widely accepted thing that when you use that word ignorant, towards a black person, what you're really saying is, nigger. And you go on to the Young Turks and you see when they post about, Candace Owens or Kanye West, they're like, oh, he's ignorant. It's like, dude, that's code. And guess what? We all know, you know what I mean? That's not a dog whistle thing. Like we all know that. We all know what you're saying when you use that word ignorant towards a black person. Leftists are the most racist people. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen, like, what we've always known that, yeah, sure, there's people out there that are racist, sure. It doesn't seem to be that big of a problem. I don't see a whole lot of people dying from it. You know what I mean? So it's just always been like one of those things like, yeah, I guess, in a couple more 100 years, like there just won't be any more of that because we're all sort of growing up and getting used to each other and the world's a lot smaller of a place now. Not so with the left anymore. Holy crap. The things that they say about Candace Owens, you go on to C.J. Pearson's Twitter page and you read those comments that adults, grown-ass men and women, writing to a 16-year-old kid, a young man, sure, but he's just a kid. He hasn't even graduated high school yet. And the N-bombs and the ignorance and the Uncle Toms, and by the way, like, that phrase Uncle Tom, that's also that is a horrific insult, right? Like if you read was it Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn? Like, or no, it was Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'm sorry, but you know, if you read like what that actually means, it's like worse than calling somebody a nigger. It's horrible, and this is a kid, and he's being attacked with violence of these words, these curses that are being spoken over these people's lives by the left. It's the upside, you know what I mean? It's like you're not holy. This is not a conversation of, you know, well, I have my opinion and you have your opinion. This is a conversation of somebody in this conversation is good and somebody in this conversation is evil. 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 And you want to know one of the quickest ways to find out who that is look to who speaks the language of the father of lies. Satan the Great, as he's called. The father of lies. And if you see people speaking the language of the father of lies, that's how you know if you're in a conversation where it's just like, well, I'm kind of anti-vaccination. Oh, I'm kind of pro-vaccination. Versus, like, no, you're evil. You stood there and were running around calling everybody a racist, and that racism was some sort of reprehensible thing that needed to be immediately eradicated from the human condition, and yet you are going after a 16-year-old kid named C.J. Pearson and calling him a nigger? And Uncle Tom, ignorant. You, leftist, you're evil. There's no truth in your heart. You speak lies. You speak the language of your father. Protect all women, they said. Believe all women, they said. If you don't believe all women, then you are holding progress back. Believe all women, unless, of course, they were raped by Bill Clinton. You're lying. You don't believe all women. And you paraded out this woman who was willing to lie for you. Oh, well, what could possibly be in it for her? Oh, I don't know. Being on the cover of Time magazine, being on television every single day for 2 weeks. We all want to be on TV. We all want it. Remember that couple? There was that couple that was, let me just, oh man, I hope I come back to this. But remember there was that couple and they were on TV. I think they were on like Dancing, you know, America's Got Talent or something like that. Celebrity, no, not Celebrity Wife, but like one of those shows where it was like some sort of reality show. There's this guy and his wife, and they were on this reality TV show for a month or two and whatever, and then they got voted off or however it worked. And do you remember this? I want to say this was in New Mexico. Then they wanted to be on TV again so badly that they constructed a like a hot air balloon out of like aluminum foil and stuff, and they put their kid in it. And then they launched it so that the news crews would come out and be, you know, because it was like, oh, there's this balloon and there's a kid attached to it. Do you remember this story? This was, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever. Do you guys remember that story? It was a New Mexico couple. They built it, and it looked like a flying saucer, and it was built out of aluminum foil that, you know, so it could retain heat. And their kid was in it. Then they went, you know, the fire department, everybody showed up and they saved the kid. And then, the parents were like, oh, thank God, my son, he's alive. But then, you know, somebody had the presence of mind to say, well, wait a minute, how did any of this happen? How did any of this happen? So they sat the parents down and they started investigating, and they said, listen, you sons of bitches, like, you have broken the law. You've broken a number of laws, and child endangerment is one of them. You've really broken a lot of laws here. Now, we need to know why you did this. And like months later, it came out. It's like, listen, we just had to be back on TV. We just wanted to be back on the TV, man. We were famous for like a month. You know what I mean? Like, people have that. There's something in the human condition. It's like, yeah, I also want to be on TV. That's what it was. Perfect. So There's all these leftists saying, well, why? What's in it for her? Why would she lie? It's like, what do you mean what's in it for her? She's on TV. They are probably, just like Anita Hill, they will probably make a Lifetime movie for her. Right? So all women can sit around and drink wine out of a box and pet their cats and watch the movie about Christine Blasey Ford. They literally made a movie about Anita Hill. And it painted her as like some victim. What's in it for her? A movie, a book deal. She gets to be on TV for 2 weeks. $1 million. What do you mean what's in it? Why would somebody lie? What do you mean? It's cover of Time magazine, $1 million, gets to be on TV. You know what I mean? Protect women, man. You got to protect women's rights. Unless it's protecting women from Bill Clinton, Keith Ellison, Ted Kennedy, who literally killed a woman and was later called the Lion of the Senate. You see, they say one thing and they do another. That's fruit. Right? That's a product of that tree. That's how you can differentiate like which one is a conversation of good versus evil, dark versus light, Yahweh versus Hazatan. That's how you know the fruit. Protect women. You've seen all those videos, like the one in at the Trump rally in San Diego in 2016 or whatever. There was a whole mob that cornered this one, like she wasn't elderly, but she was like in her 40s or 50s. This one lady who was wearing like a Trump T-shirt or whatever, and this whole mob cornered her against these doors that for whatever reason weren't opening, and they just started like throwing shit at her, like eggs and whatnot. Protect all women, huh? Oh, you mean protect women that that you like? You mean protect Christina Blasey Ford because she's a liar just like you. Protect her. How about Alyssa Milano? She was on TV since I was a kid. She was on Who's the Boss, and then she was in Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then she disappeared forever. And then she came back on the whatever, Charmed or whatever that show was. And she was hot. It's not, quit screwing around, man. She was pretty hot. But she hasn't been on TV again for what, a decade? You think that need to be famous, that need to be on TV goes away? Look at Alyssa Milano. She's doing everything that she can to be relevant again. And she has no... there's that tweet of hers that came out from 2012 where she writes to Bill Clinton and says, Bill Clinton, I love you so much. It's like, bitch, he raped no less than 16 women, and he has ties to that rape island where they raped little kids. There's many parts to that story about Bill Clinton. What was the name of that island that was owned by that one? Shit, I'm sorry, guys. I didn't look it up, but there was this island that was owned by this political player, and that the guy that owned that island is in prison right now because he got caught raping children. And he owned an island where they just raped children. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact, and the guy is in prison for it as we speak. And Bill Clinton flew there a bunch of times. Fruit of the tree. Good versus evil. God versus the devil. Don't get it twisted. That's where we are at. Protect the children, they say. Gotta protect the kids, man. We gotta do more for kids with special needs. Well, what do you want to do? Oh, we want to kill them in the womb so they can't come out and be kids with special needs. Oh. You got to protect kids' rights, man. Kids have a right to, if they think that they should have been a boy or they should have been a girl, right? And by the way, it only works this way. If a young boy says, "Mommy, Daddy, I think I want to wear mommy's shoes and wear a purse around and put on makeup," it's like, oh, you must be suffering from transgenderism. Let's give you some carcinogenic drugs that are going to burn things out of your body that you're going to need to develop into a man. Protect the children. Protect the children. We've seen the video footage of modern day, like recent, like just a few months ago, gay pride parades where gay men were walking around with young boys, well underaged boys, on their shoulders and kissing each other on the lips and stuff. These are pedophiles. Good versus evil is what you are up against. Light versus darkness, God versus Satan. These are the times. Do not misunderstand. Do not have, you know what I mean? Like if you don't know where you are, like when you go to the mall, right? You go to the shopping mall, and let's say it's a big one, right? And you don't know where you know where the Sears is and the, Nordstrom's and all that. Like, you know where those things are because they're gigantic, but you're looking for that little boutique shop where they sell the cool leather jackets and that's all they sell, whatever. It's like you have to go to that thing. The thing that tells you, it's got the arrow that says you are here. Right? Well, if there's, if you're in a mall that's 5 stories high, it's like it takes you a little while to figure out, like, well, you are here, but where is here? Because there's 5 floors. There's a you are here that says the exact same thing 4 floors underneath me. Which you are here is here, right? You cannot be confused about the times. These people are willing to lie and cheat and steal, and they will not give up. Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer and Cory Booker and all of the Gillibrand and all those people, they are all right now in their war room figuring out which lie they're going to spread next, what their next move is going to be. Because lying, sending up a liar to lie to the American people didn't work. Calling Donald Trump a racist didn't work. Calling Donald Trump a Soviet spy didn't work. Bringing up the fact that he had sex with a porn star didn't work. It didn't work. Saying that he was going to start a war with Russia and North Korea didn't work. None of those things worked. So what did they do next? Oh, let's bring out this liar, Christine Blasey Ford, whose story is so ridiculous. Like, I have no idea how those people ever gave the green light. Like, this girl has a complete horseshit story, but let's go with it. Because now the Republicans are completely galvanized. And when I say Republicans, I mean like House and Senate Republicans, those people. The Democrats don't understand this. Like, and when I say Democrats, I mean Democrat America. Like, people who vote liberal and vote Democrat, like, those people have no idea. You just took a middle-of-the-road guy and shoved him far to the right. He is going to be confirmed into the Senate, and he will be voting hard to the right for the rest of his life. And if you don't believe me, look at the change in Justice Thomas's behavior since his confirmation. Clarence Thomas votes a very specific way because of what he went through. That man has been changed. He's been altered forever because of the Anita Hill thing. And this thing with Blasey Ford, it's 10 times worse than what Clarence Thomas had to go through. Congratulations, Democrats. You just put a lion. It's got a big R on his chest, square in the Supreme Court. Good job. Good for you. You people don't, you're not real good on, when it comes to thinking. We just saw, again, oh, you got to protect the children. Joe Biden. You have nothing to say. Like, that's what I mean. It's like, yes, I too want to protect children from people like Joe Biden, from people like Bill Clinton, from you people who want to normalize pedophilia. That's who I'm trying to save children from you. When you say it, you're lying. Because what you mean is we want to protect kids with autism by terminating their life in the womb. We want to protect children by giving more taxpayer dollars to Planned Parenthood, which is a whole nother, again, they say, oh, you're evil if you're saying defund Planned Parenthood from federal dollars. It's like, no. You are forcing me to pay for abortions which I find morally reprehensible. If you want an abortion, you can pay for it. Furthermore, that is a states' rights issue. That's the whole problem with Roe v. Wade. It doesn't have anything to do with legalizing abortion. The problem with Roe v. Wade is that the federal government decided that that was a federal issue, which it clearly cannot be. It's a state issue. It's a states' rights issue anyways. We want to protect women. Oh, thanks. Thanks for roundhouse kicking a pregnant woman. You know what I mean? That guy in Toronto. And Owen Benjamin laid out this perfect thing about this. Like, this is who the left are. It's like, oh, look at me. I've got my pink highlights in my hair. I've got my little pentagram around my neck and I'm skinny. You can see my nipples through my sweater. And I've got my ears gauged and I've got the nose ring and the in-between, man. I've got the little lip, I got 2 piercings in my lip, man. I'm woke. I'm progressive, man. I'm a champion of women. I'm a champion of all the things that are good and right. Kicks a pregnant woman. And now we all get to see who the left is. That's who they truly are. They are violent and they will kill you if given the opportunity, if they think they can get away with it. And it goes all the way up to Dianne Feinstein, to Chuck Schumer, to Sheila Jackson Lee, who called in a hit. That's what doxing people is on that level. Putting Lindsey Graham's name and address and all that stuff out into the ether so that people can attack Lindsey Graham. That's a hit. That came out of our Congress. Sheila Jackson Lee is a congresswoman who waves her little finger with her big ass, fingernail. She called in a hit. That's who these people are. They want to see people die. They have no problem lying. Nothing is in their heart but lies and murder. We are in a battle of God versus the devil. And look, this is another thing. Like, you have to own what your group does. Right? The walk away movement that's been started by Brandon Straka, and it's a really unfortunate name because by the way, like, and I have plenty of emails that would show, like, I've been looking to name my book The Walk Away for years. And it has nothing to do with being gay and not being a Democrat anymore. It has to do with something else. But, Brandon Straka decided I have to walk away from this because I cannot be in ownership of any of this stuff anymore. These people are violent, they are full of lies, and I cannot take ownership of this. Like, if you're a liberal, you have to own the guy kicking the pregnant woman in Toronto. He's one of you. You say, oh, Pete, well, isn't that just whataboutism? Nope. Here, let me explain. George Bush signed into law the Patriot Act, which is a violation of a number of our constitutional rights. The Patriot Act means that the government can now take away your right to due process simply by moving you over to Cuba. They can say, well, we think he's a terrorist, and therefore we're going to take him to Cuba. And we're not going to charge him with anything. We're not going to take him to court. He will not be provided an attorney. Nothing. We can just put him in camp indefinitely. Right? President Bush did that. I have to own that. Not just because I'm a Republican, but that would be enough, right? Not just because I'm a conservative Christian, not that would be enough. But also because of the fact that I voted for the guy in the second term. Sorry, everybody. He violated the Constitution. I have to own that. Right? And if I choose that I no longer want to own that, then I will walk away. Every time an abortion clinic, doctor guy gets murdered, which is like once every 15, 20 years. As a Christian, I have to own that and say, okay, all right. Right, this thing going on in the Catholic Church right now, I'm not Catholic, but I am a follower of Jesus Christ. When that stuff happens, I have to say, look, this cannot happen anymore because this reflects poorly on me. You are bearing the name of my Redeemer and you are raping children. That reflects poorly on my Redeemer, and because I am his follower, that reflects poorly on me. You are assaulting me when you do that. And if I no longer want to take ownership of that, then I have to walk away from Christianity. See how that works? You have to own the mistakes that are made in whatever thing that you're associated with. It sucks. It's a shitty deal, but that is the deal. You have to own it. I'm very sorry, about the President Bush thing. He violated the Constitution of the United States. I swore an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States. Therefore, I may be under orders, right? I may be under covenant to attack. Because that Patriot Act is a clear attack on the Constitution of the United States. Right? But anyways, what I'm saying is like you have to own it. I have to own the mistakes that President Bush made. And honestly, I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was a coordinated attack. But even still, I have to own it. So, dear liberal, you have to own everything that's happening. And if you cannot bear the weight of it, then you have to walk away from it. That's how that works. Right? I can bear the weight of what's going on because I am ready to fight my own fellow Republicans. Anybody who stands up for the Patriot Act and for the deprivation of constitutionally guaranteed rights. I don't care if they're Republican. I don't care if they are Billy Graham Christian or Pope Francis. I don't care who you are. If you stand up for the deprivation of God-given rights to any human being, you are my enemy and I seek to kill you. That's the cost of ownership. It's heavy. And if you want to get away from the burden of ownership, then you simply need to drop your burden and walk away from it, and you don't associate with it anymore. So liberals, you have to understand when these people stand up for pedophilia and they champion the cause of pedophilia, if you do not speak out against it the way that I speak out against that demon Pope Francis that's sitting in that office right now, if you don't speak out against it, then you are for it. If you are not ready to fight, as I am ready to fight, the Swiss Guard in the Vatican, and start killing people if things don't start straight, it's like, dude, you are purposely targeting children for attack. You have got to die now, because clearly your police are unwilling to do it. Therefore, you're putting the burden of policing on me. These liberals, they won't do that, though. They'll just keep saying, yes, bring up some more, give us some more liars. Christine Blasey Ford isn't a big enough liar. Let's bring this lady on who says, I didn't get raped once. I got the rapes 10 different times. I just kept showing up to the rapes. It was horrible. So horrible that I showed up 10 different times. And then she goes on ABC or whatever and completely changes her story. And so what does the left do? Instead of saying, no, stop it. Stop it. This is bullshit. You're lying. And it never works. Stop lying. What do they do? No, give us some more liars. Please. Can somebody else please step up and lie? It's weird. It's weird. What's really weird too is that the left really, they could have actually gained Republican support over the Kavanaugh debacle. They went about it all wrong. Kavanaugh is actually his history would strongly suggest that he's a big fan of the Patriot Act, that he's a fan of spying on his fellow Americans and depriving Americans of their right to due process and face their accuser and cross-examination and all that other stuff. All the Democrats had to do, they didn't have to lie. The truth was more than enough. All they had to do was get him on the stand and say, so what's up with the Patriot Act? And let him talk to a whole nation full of conservatives and a whole nation full of Republicans, and let Kavanaugh sit there and tell all the conservatives, like, yeah, I'm a big fan of taking away your right to due process. They could have had him. But instead, they went with the lie. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. If they just would have used the truth, they could have won. I don't know. These are bizarre times. But listen, man, Jesus said, I am the way, and I am the truth, and I am the life. Look, there are certain things that you have to believe if you're going to be a Christian, right? There's certain things that you also must know, right? And belief and knowing are two very different things. All right. If you believe that, and I'm gonna kind of steal from C.S. Lewis, because C.S. Lewis once he wrote this thing where he says, look, you know, a baby comes out of the womb and it automatically knows how to nurse, right? It already knows how to, you know, suckle on a breast to get milk out of it, to get food. Right? A baby already has that written into their genes, right? And so, therefore, the baby knows nothing else but this, is that, you know, since I know how to do this, there must then be a thing called food. It has to exist because I written into my DNA, I already know how to get it. So there must be the thing that can be gotten. And he says, and then you grow up a little bit, you know, you start going through your puberty years, your early teens or whatever, preteens, and all of a sudden you start having all these interesting dreams and different kind of feelings and whatever. And so it's like, since basically what I'm getting at is procreation. It's like, because I automatically know how to procreate. Right? You guys remember going through puberty. It's very difficult, right? It's a very strange awakening because you're just like, whoa, why is it that I suddenly have this urge to do this thing that I've never seen before or heard about? You know what I mean? But I certainly already know how to perform this act. The fact that you already know how to perform it and that your body is already equipped to do it means that there therefore must be, something to be obtained from that, which is procreation, right? So using that model, it's like, because you have a need, a necessity for truth, then that by itself would tell you that there must be a thing called truth. It must be obtainable, right? Because you have a need for it. Do you believe that? Do you know that? Way down deep, do you know that there is a thing called truth and you need it for your survival? So, because when I use that word need, that's what I'm getting at. Like, you have to have food or else you're going to die. C.S. Lewis also said, like your body makes you go to sleep. Therefore, there must be something that's called rest. There must be something on the other end of your need to lay down and close your eyes. It's called rest. And if you don't have it, you're going to die. And if you do not procreate, then when you die, your physical death, you're going to die an even bigger death, because your genetic material will no longer be progressing through the earth. You're going to, if you do not procreate, You're going to die, and then you're going to die in a very final sort of way. And if you do not have truth, there is a death that you will experience by not having the truth. And Jesus said, I am the truth. That's a really profound, you can meditate on just that by itself for the rest of your life, and you'll never get to the bottom of it. You'll just be swimming around in an ocean of deep thought about what did Jesus mean when he said, I am the truth. Whoa. But this is what Jesus said. As far as listen, you have to know this. You cannot believe this. You have to know it. If you only believe this, that's good. It will lead you to the valley of knowing. But this is something that you ultimately, someday, if you don't right now, you need to know this and understand this passage of the words of Jesus Christ. The Word of God made flesh. The Son of God. God with us. That's what the word Emmanuel means. It doesn't mean God is with us. It means God with us. And Jesus said this. I want you to hear it in the context of your quest for the truth. Ask, and it shall be given unto you. What Jesus is saying is this is a cosmic guarantee. This is an immutable law of the universe. If you ask, you will receive. And if you seek, you will find it. That is an immutable law of the universe. Seek it, and you will find it. It's guaranteed. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. These are guarantees, people. And if you have not yet come to a place in your life where it has become universally important for you to seek these things out and obtain the truth, now is the time, because we are living in a time where the line is clear, right? Fighting against Adolf Hitler in the 1930s was not a question of it's our politics versus your politics, right? It wasn't that wasn't the thing. The Cuban Revolution was a matter of we want to be communists and you people are, capitalists, and we think ours is better, so we're going to go to war, right? Well, even then it came down to good and evil. But take the war against Hitler. That was not a war of differing politics. That was a war of good and evil. And we are moving ever so rapidly, right? The snowball just keeps gaining and gaining. We are moving faster and closer, right? This thing just keeps getting more violent and more violent. You better know the truth. You better be able to identify lies when they are spoken, and to identify evil when it is revealed. Because these are the times that we're living in. And it's a wonderful time to be alive. Very exciting time. God bless you guys. Hey, if you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com, and you can, if you want to support, if you would, become a Patreon member, right? Do $3 a month. It's 9 cents a day, right? It's nothing. I need 1,000 people to send me $3 a month. Then I can come back to America. And if you don't want to do that, if you're not ready for a monthly commitment, hey, I understand. If you just want to send a couple of bucks over, you can do that through PayPal. Thank you, Michael Whitlock, for the $25. I appreciate you. He did that on PayPal. Easy peasy. Japanesey. That's it. You guys have a great week. You guys have a great weekend. I will talk to you on Monday. Bye.